This is a real quick trigger warning for anyone who doesn't like graphic details. I go pretty deep sometimes on sensitive subjects, especially when it revolves around true crime. So if any of that bothers you, I wouldn't listen on. If you're okay with it, then enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to Culture Shocked, pop culture podcast brought to you by four aging millennials and our outdated opinions. You know what? We're going to do something a little different today. This isn't your normal episode. I have, for a long time in my life, been obsessed with true crime and serial killers, and I get made fun of a lot for it by these guys. So I figured I'd drag one of them in and make them listen to me talk about one. I'm here with Doug today.
Hi.
He's going to be the middleman here today. He's going to maybe ask questions, or I'm pretty much just going to talk your guys' ear off about one of the lesser known serial killers, but he is pretty popular lately, Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of him, but I figured with all the hype around the show, which was amazing, by the way, a lot of details, very askewed for TV purposes, but a great show. Evan Peters killed it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, after this, going and watching it. I was going to watch it ahead of time, but I figured it'd be more interesting to just sit here and learn and try to be the sit-in for you guys listening in and try to ask questions hopefully you'd be interested in asking. So that's the goal.
It was super interesting going into that. I'd like to know the perspective of somebody that doesn't know a ton about him, because going into it knowing a lot about him already, I kind of knew what was coming, but it was still brutal to see it. Like, I've seen a lot of documentaries and reenactments, but they don't typically show a whole lot. It's just like those tricky camera angles of a drill coming back with blood on it, and a typical A&E documentary reenactment where they barely show the person's face and it's just shadows. But the show Dahmer really went into it and showed some pretty graphic stuff. So
okay,
it was pretty damn decent. Plus, Evan Peters played him like to a T how he actually is. Evan Peters is Quicksilver in the X-Men movie.
Oh shit! Okay, yeah, wow.
Yeah, he actually, when he got the script for that, he said, "I really kind of want to play something normal for once," and then he read the script and immediately changed his mind and said, "Fuck it, I think this will be interesting and fun to try and play him." So he did.
Oh man,
he was just trying to be somebody normal in something for once.
I get to play a guy named Jeffrey. Perfect.
All right, so I'm just going to start this from the beginning. A couple of details you don't really need, but he was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1960. His family moved to Ohio when he was 8, so he didn't get a whole lot of Wisconsin in him before he left. But his father, Lionel Dahmer, was a chemist by trade. He was a very, very brilliant man, still is to this day. Defended his son for a very long time, but wrote a book eventually talking about how he should have saw the signs, and he even blamed himself for this for a very long time. His mother's name was Joyce. She was a stay-at-home mom with extreme depression and anxiety and a lot of really big problems. She took pretty much every pill that there was available to her when she was pregnant with Jeff, and a lot of people think maybe that fucked his brain up before he was even born, which is very possible.
What years was that?
1960s when he was born.
Okay.
So she took like all these uppers and downers and estrogen, and
everything
she just
was
took
on the market back then.
Yeah, she took everything because her husband was a chemist and knew doctors and could get access to all the things she needed.
Oh man, okay, that's interesting.
Growing up, they fought constantly. Jeff never had a normal home life. He had a little brother, David, but I'm not 100% sure David wanted a lot to do with Jeffrey, because Jeffrey was a little bit of a shut-in, awkward kid. He was always off on his own in the woods and doing his own thing. And
did he have the generic telltale serial killer signs that a lot of people talk about? Okay.
One of them actually is his dad was like super desperate to find something for Jeff to be interested in, because he didn't know anything about his son, because he was constantly on his own, just thinking his own thoughts. And one day they found roadkill while they were just kind of walking around, and Jeffrey showed extreme interest in the bones and the inside of that animal. And his dad, being the scientist he is, thought, well, there's a career path, anatomy or animal anatomy or a vet or a doctor. So he's got super excited that his son might actually be into something normal. ish.
Oh.
So him and his dad literally went around for quite some time collecting roadkill. He taught him how to melt the skin off with acid and showed him what all the bones are and explained things to him. And Jeff just seemed interested in the anatomy of it, but he didn't actually know that deep down Jeff was actually getting weirdly sexually excited by it. And so that's what his dad blames himself for, and he did for a very long time, that he got him interested in this in the beginning.
Well, here's a question. Since you're a father, if you were with your kid, would that be your first thought? Obviously not, I'm guessing.
No.
Well, maybe you with your serial killer obsession.
with my knowledge of the signs that the red flags in children, it would probably cross my mind at some point. But at first, especially nowadays with it's actually kind of a big thing to get the bones out of animals and kind of use them as decorations. It's actually more of a thing now than it used to be. People even sell that shit online.
Oh shit, okay.
So it's not, it probably wouldn't faze me at first, but if one of my kids wanted to keep doing it constantly all the time,
if it's snowballed, okay.
I think I would. And if they started like hiding themselves in their room and not talking, and probably would figure it out.
All work and no play.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what this actually did to him, because of his family being extremely toxic and the dad always being not there and only seeing him at bedtime, and the mom constantly blaming Jeff for all her problems on drugs, he took that and did what most kids in that situation did, and he became an extreme class clown and like acted out in school. Everybody loved him for like the crazy noises he would just straight up make in the middle of the hallway. He'd wait for a quiet moment and make weird noises. He even snuck into a honor roll photo to just get his face in there. And then when they noticed it after the yearbooks were already made, they were all really pissed that he was in there. They blacked his face out in every book. So there are yearbooks out there with a black marker over a face, and that's Jeff Dahmer's in there.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So he acted out. He didn't like reserve him. That's interesting.
No, and he had what could be considered friends because he did all that crazy stuff and funny stuff, so people laughed at him. Like he never had any friends that I think that he took home and played with, but at school he was relatively well liked, at least in the middle where nobody noticed anything wrong about him.
Yeah, okay, that's just totally blindsided me. Okay.
I know. When he was a kid, he didn't have that weird thing that you're like, that kid's weird. But I think he was awkward enough because eventually, like when everybody was graduated, I actually watched this thing where they were all sitting around their 10-year reunion and they were talking about people who didn't show up, and they said, "Oh, Jeff's not here." And the one guy said, "He's probably a serial killer by now." They literally said that like before it even came out that he was.
God damn.
So the dude was weird enough that happened, but he had friends, so he was any normal kid in the 70s.
Yeah, you would never.
No,
that's crazy. I never would have guessed that.
No, most people don't know that about Jeff.
Since you're talking about his child life so much, would you say that, like, because it sounds like he had like a good dad who like was interested in him being interested in things, but was he like neglected? Did he like not get any attention from his parents? Was his dad too busy? Was his mom like abusive?
His mom, I don't know about physically abusive. I never heard any of that, but she was very mentally abusive.
Okay.
And his dad was barely ever there. He was working all day, all night. He barely saw his dad. So he was alone with his thoughts probably 5 full days out of the 7 a week. Just nobody to take care of him from like the age 7 on, like 8 on. So
okay.
Yeah, he was and his brother David was even a little younger than him, so he kind of had to take care of David a little bit.
Okay.
Which that guy actually changed his name when all this came out, and he's been anonymous still to this day. So
okay. I was curious if he had any. Okay, so there's probably like very little on his opinion on everything. Okay.
I'm not even sure if because his mother, as of now, is dead. She died of cancer, I think.
Oh, okay.
And his dad's still alive and wrote a book, but I'm not sure the brother David even talks to the dad. I don't know. There's been a lot of photos of the dad out there over the years, but I've never seen a kid with him or a guy with him that...
He's got to be like 80.
Yeah, he's older now.
Okay.
But another thing that happened to him was he started drinking when he was 13 because there was always alcohol in the house, and he needed something to numb his pain. So he's been an alcoholic since he was 13. Like to the day he went to prison, he was an alcoholic. But around 13 is also when he started to realize he was attracted to other men. He even had what was sort of a relationship with another boy in the neighborhood.
Okay.
That was very secret. And because of the time back then, you couldn't really express that to anyone. So he never really
70s,
talked about it.
80s,
Yeah. So he never really talked about it.
Before we get too deep into this, I know, all I know is he was like cannibal killer guy. Was it more than that he was finally caught for? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We'll get to that then. Okay.
He actually didn't even get into the cannibalism until almost before he was caught.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
See, I thought that was like some major... Okay, geez.
No, it was literally the year he got caught was when he started doing the cannibalism.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there's going to be way more to this story than I'm ready for. Okay.
That's not even the last thing he did, the cannibalism either. There was another step or two he took after that.
Oh, shit. Okay.
His senior year was a bit crazy. It was a turning point for him because his parents got divorced and his mom decided to straight up take David and just move back to Milwaukee. And in the divorce, she actually had it put into the divorce settlement that Lionel, the dad, had to sell the house. He had to sell it. Neither of them could own it. I don't know how she got that done, but she did. But he also wasn't allowed to live in it. So he had to move to a hotel because Jeff at this point was 17. And in the 70s, that was kind of, you're an adult at 17.
Yeah.
Jeff decided to just stay there and live in it while they were selling it. So then he was alone, all alone in that house and you could buy beer then in the 70s, certain places. And so he was just kind of buying beer and working out and fantasizing about all the crazy shit that he fantasized about. So his dad wasn't around even more then. I'm not even sure how often he came back to the house to check on him or anything like that.
Did he graduate or did he end up dropping out of school?
He graduated.
Oh, really?
He actually went to college for a little bit.
Oh, shit.
But before that, in 1978, while he was still in school, he decided that he couldn't keep his sadness and loneliness and fucked up fantasies in his head anymore. He was really obsessed with this jogger that used to run by their street. This is a very well-known story. He watched him all the time. He would like jerk off thinking about him. Like it was some crazy shit he would do. He decided one day, you know what? I'm going to force him to come back to my house and be my lover. That was his plan. He was going to knock him out, force him back to the house, and make him love him. But the day he went to do it, the jogger didn't show up that day. Lucky for him.
Yeah.
And because he was already in that headspace, he decided, well, I got to do this. I got to find somebody. That guy's name is Stephen Hicks. He took him back. He was hitchhiking to a concert festival where a bunch of his friends were meeting him. And he decided, I'm going to take this guy to the festival, but the condition is you come back to my place and we drink some beers first, and then I'll just go with you to the concert. And it was the 70s. Everybody fucking hitchhiked and did whatever back then. So the dude just straight up got in his car, went back to Jeff's house, and they had some beers. Jeff made a pass at him. The dude got all pissed off and said he wasn't gay. And this pissed Jeff off, and he picked up a dumbbell and beat him to death with it.
That was his first. Was that his first victim?
That was his first victim in 1978. He wasn't even graduated from high school yet.
Wow.
It was his first kill.
70. Okay, so I'm trying to keep a timeline in my head of everything. 78, first kill. All right.
That's crazy. That's all it took to make him go into an angry rage was just say he's not gay. He literally picked it up and beat him to death with it. But with the dead body laying on the ground, it aroused him and he masturbated on the guy's body. Like he immediately. I probably should have put a trigger warning at the beginning of this episode. I'm gonna say some fucked up stuff.
You can have that later.
Yeah, that's true. But once he knew that a corpse would make him that horny, there was literally no stopping somebody once you realize something like that. That's just your thing now. So...
Okay, so was he a necrophiliac or was
eventually he was.
All right. Okay, so...
He didn't fuck this guy when he was dead, but he does eventually do that.
He hasn't got to that point.
He has many steps that he takes.
All right. Well, yeah, I couldn't imagine him just going straight to the end, right day one.
No, he like builds up to more and more fucked up stuff.
So, were there any like stories about him where somebody else was almost that first victim earlier on, but he
just the jogger?
Just the jogger. Okay, so it was before that point he had it all under control, quote unquote.
Yeah, it was all just fantasy up until that he decided to take that jogger out, but the jogger never showed up. So.
Couldn't do it anymore. Okay.
Yep, he just couldn't hold it in anymore, especially with his parents not being there. He's still a kid. He's drinking all the time. You can
So
only keep shit like that in your head so long.
So you might not know this. It might not be known, but did he want to keep it all fantasy for a long time? Is that why it took until he was like almost 18?
He actually opened up a lot after he was arrested and said that for a long time he wanted to be normal. He even said the killing wasn't fun for him. He didn't want to kill people. His whole plan was he was so lonely he wanted somebody there, even if they weren't alive. He wanted a body. And he eventually got obsessed with hearing heartbeats, which ended up actually making him do something else that I'll say near the end of this.
Okay.
But
interesting.
After he killed Steven, he dismembered him in his garage with paring knives and different tools that his dad had in the garage. Yeah, it probably took a long time. He bagged everything up in garbage bags, put it in the car to take it to the dump. Because he didn't know what to do. You know, this was new to him.
Yeah.
He was pulled over on the way because he was swerving because he had been drinking. And these cops noticed he was drunk, asked about the garbage bags, and still let him go home. He said that he was tired, couldn't sleep, decided to get his trash run done early in the morning. They said, I think you need to go home and sleep this off, so they sent him home. Well, they didn't send him home. They sent him on his way, and he panicked and went home.
Could this happen today?
Oh, that could definitely still happen today.
Okay.
In certain cities, yes.
Okay.
Now, if you're like, I think if you're in, not Alabama, if you're in like Atlanta drunk, they're going to arrest you. They're going to check those bags. Areas, but if you're in even small town around here, maybe, you can just say, listen, I'm not actually drunk. I'm just very tired. I have these bags I'm taking to burn at my uncle's house. They might let you go.
Okay.
It also depends on how much of an asshole they decide to be that day.
Yeah. Obviously.
But he went back home, dismembered the rest of his body, broke his bones down as much as he could, and just buried everything in the yard.
Oh, wow. So he just ditched the dump idea altogether.
Yep. He boiled the skulls till they were semi-fragile and just crushed them with hammers and just sprinkled everything in the yard. They eventually dug all that up, and it was all little pieces.
Well, he really did learn everything he needed to know young, didn't he? That's crazy.
That's why his dad blamed himself for so long, because he taught him all that shit. After high school, he actually seemingly went on to try to live a normal life for a while. He enrolled at, this is going to hurt my soul, Ohio State University, where he went to school for a whole year.
Sorry for all the laughter, folks, for listening. That's an aside. That's for other reasons. Every time,
yeah, I'm a huge Ohio State Buckeyes fan. And my brother is a Michigan Wolverines fan. This is one thing he definitely has on me. Jeffrey Dahmer went to Ohio State. He struggled super hard there because he was an alcoholic. Ohio State's not an easy school by any means academically. No. So if you're a struggling alcoholic who killed a kid a year prior, you're probably going to have a lot on your mind.
So you said he opened up after he got caught and stuff.
Yeah.
After that first kill, did he feel like it was out of his system for a while? Like he didn't need that anymore?
Yeah, he actually doesn't kill for a while after that.
Okay. So it was almost, but that urge for something.
Oh, the urge was still there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Oh, when he just couldn't hack it at Ohio State with his alcoholism. His grades were horrible.
Couldn't hack
Ohio State's too good. Michigan was begging him to come over. That part's not true. But his father finally got fed up and forced him to join the army. He was hoping for some kind of structure. Back then, that's especially what they did.
Yeah, I think even back then, judges would give people the choice to go to the military or go to jail.
Yep. That's very true. I think they still kind of do that sometimes when it's something that's not too bad. Like if you rob a place, they might say, well, do you want to join the army or you want to go to prison? I think they still do that sometimes. I know there's a certain judge in America who, if you do stupid petty crimes, he'll give you the chance of 30 days in jail, or you go to a hospital in a clown costume and you cheer up all the kids for an hour. There's literally a judge in America that does that, and I don't remember his name. But he's an interesting guy. But it's only if it's something stupid, like a traffic ticket or...
Yeah, some petty bullshit.
Yeah. He actually got into the army as an army medic because of all of his knowledge about anatomy and stuff. He easily passed that. He did very good in biology in school, if you could have guessed that. Actually stole a fetal pig one time from school and played with it. Oh. He was shipped to Germany. His drinking issues actually got worse because... I don't know if anybody knows this, but in the military, you can drink your fucking face off most of the time. So they kicked him out of the army. It didn't take very long. I think a year. His father was pretty pissed about that, and he thought the best course of action was to move him home to Wisconsin to live with his grandmother and get a job. because she was a very Christian woman. He was hoping that God would give him some, maybe she could scare some God into him and give him some direction in his life, which again, back then was a very big thing, especially in the South.
Wisconsin?
Well, that's, yeah, Midwestern. I meant Midwestern, not South. So.
It's not important.
It did seem to work for a little while. Jeff started going to church with his grandma, started reading the Bible, and actually started to kind of feel bad about some of the things he had done in the past. He actually started to reflect and feel a little bad, but he should have felt a lot more bad. After about a year of this acting normal, his crazy fantasies started to creep up again, and he didn't want to kill, so he stole this mannequin from a department store, and for a good couple months treated it like a boyfriend in his bedroom. He would sleep beside it, lay on it, masturbate on it. Pretty much everything you could do to a lover, he would do to that in the bedroom. And, I mean, you can only keep that shit hidden so long when you have a nosy grandma in the house. And one day while he was at home, she found it in his closet with, like, makeup on it and stuff, I think. And she got a little freaked out and almost had a heart attack and forced Jeff to get rid of it, which actually threw him off the deep end. He was really pissed about that. Because it was like your grandma telling you she's no good for you, dump her. You know, so that's going to piss anybody off. And in his head, that mannequin was his boyfriend. It wasn't a mannequin. It was his boyfriend.
It was keeping him calm.
Yes. And that threw him into a weird rage where he started exposing himself to kids on the street. He got caught masturbating in public one time. He got arrested for exposing himself to a bunch of kids at a county fair. Like, he just started going fucking nuts. And then 1985, which is 6 years after his first kill, actually, he got a job at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory. I think that's what it's called. And as far as anyone could tell, he was finally doing better. He was actually a good worker. Nobody really had anything bad to say about him. He kept to himself. He got his job done. He went home. This is when he found his way into Milwaukee and realized there was a thriving gay scene there. He could finally kind of be open about it, which actually was bad for Jeffrey because that was just a slew of victims for him. He didn't have to hunt them. He didn't have to try and find a gay person. They were all right there in front of him in one bar. So,
oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, so that's bad for him. He didn't kill yet, but he did go on a bit of a rampage where he found these gay bathhouses where gay men would go. It was a normal bathhouse, quote unquote, but you went there and you hooked up with other men in rooms and it was hush hush from the rest of the world. So he started going there and you had to pay for a room or whatever, and you mingled and you took people back to your room and then you left. That's kind of what it was. And he was slipping drugs into men's drinks and assaulting them in their rooms. But because nobody knew about those bathhouses, nobody like the cops were afraid of gay men. They literally were back then. They didn't know how to handle that. So there was nobody to tell. So he just kind of got away with that for a while. And eventually he gave one of them way too much. And the owner found the guy like dying and called an ambulance. So they traced it back to Jeff because a bunch of people said they saw that guy with Jeff, and he got blacklisted from all the bathhouses.
Okay. So he was shut out by the community eventually, which I'm sure...
Which is a very strong community, because if you have a community like gay men in the 70s and 80s that had to hide it, that's a very strong community because they're going to defend each other.
A lot of trust between them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
And you break that trust, you're fucked. So
when he sent him down, spiraling ever further downward. Okay.
It actually started him going back to the bars, drugging men there and talking them into going back to hotels with him. And he wasn't killing anybody in these hotels. He was just drugging them and assaulting them. They weren't even, well, I think they were all gay men, but not all of them wanted to sleep with Jeff. He was a very good looking guy. Actually, a lot of the things that I read and things I've seen about him say that a lot of people were attracted to Jeff. He was a decent looking guy.
It's kind of like the whole Ted Bundy effect.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But for the gay community.
Yeah.
And so at this point, it had been 8 years since Jeffrey killed anyone. But in 1987, that all changed. A man by the name of Stephen Toomey, which his first two kills were Stephen, by the way, which is interesting.
Look out, Steve.
That's right. He was one of the victims of being drugged at the bar and brought to a hotel. He was just doing his normal drug.
So
drug the guy, get him back to a hotel.
9 years since
this was 8 years later.
Oh, 8 years? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe 9. I don't know the exact date timeline.
Between 8 and 9.
Between 8 and 9 years.
Yeah, not exactly, but so fairly long, almost a decade had passed. Okay.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. it was a lot like Dennis Rader. He went 30 years. I don't know if you know anything about BTK, but
Mm-mm.
he actually went 30 years between his killings because he had a family in between there and raised kids. It's a fucked up story. I'll get to him eventually, but
yeah, that'll be another corner.
I love BTK. Well, I'm not sorry, I don't love BTK. I love his story. It's intense. But during that encounter with Toomey, he actually accidentally drank some of the laced drink. He gave him the wrong one and then switched him at some point, but he was kind of getting intoxicated and
he drugged
medicated.
himself.
He drugged
by
himself.
Accident. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Amateur hour.
And and he remembers a little bit, but then blacked out. And this is very controversial because he woke up to a lot of blood all over the bed and his body. And the guy was laying next to him, beat to death. And he still, to the day he died, claimed that he blacked that out and doesn't remember even doing that one, which, in my opinion, he was so fucking open about everything. Why would he lie about that one? I honestly think he did in his drugged stupor, that fantasy came back out and he did it. I honestly believe him that he was blacked out during that one.
I mean, like you said, he was honest about all the other ones. So yeah,
he was so open about everything.
Really pointless.
It would be.
And I'm sure, and I have a feeling he does significantly more fucked up shit down the road. So it's not like beating someone to death is like the worst. The first victim he said he beat to death.
Yep, that was the first one. He did the same thing, but this time it was like all by hand, like because his knuckles were all bruised and cut up. Like I think he just beat the guy to death.
Like from the sounds of his life, he would almost have to be drugged up to just do it with his bare hands. Like if it's as brutal as it sounds.
And from the description that Dahmer gave the next morning, it was pretty fucking brutal. But he went out to a local store. This is one of the reasons people don't believe he was blacked out, because as soon as he woke up, he got himself cleaned up and ran to a department store to buy a giant travel bag to put the body in. So people think it was actually more thought out because he did that so fast when he woke up. But I think he's just a smart guy. I think he has a high intelligence, and he knew he had to get that body out of there.
It sounds to me like this isn't the first time he thought about this situation. So
he's fantasized it for so long.
Exactly.
He probably did semi have a plan in his head what he'd do.
Yeah.
But he literally put that guy in a bag and wheeled him right out the front door.
Just left.
And just left. And the cabbie even said when he put his bag in the back, "What do you have in here, a dead body?"
Huh.
So, but he took that body back to his grandma's house where he was still staying and took it to the basement and started dismembering him. He doesn't get rid of the entire body this time, though. He did decide to keep the skull. It was the first skull that he kept.
At Grandma's house?
At Grandma's house in the basement. Because his grandma still thought he did the taxidermy stuff. That was his excuse.
So
that's why he was... Yes. But she couldn't get down to the basement, maybe, because she was very elderly and I don't know. But she never went down in that basement. Maybe more scared.
As weird as she thought he was, she probably didn't think serial, like, killing dudes.
Or she did think that and didn't want to fucking
didn't want to know.
So one of those two things played into that. In Dahmer's head, he felt like if he kept the skull, he could have the memories of the crime he committed, and he'd always have a part of Stephen Toomey with him. That was exactly what he was doing. This is Dahmer's big thing, is he always just wants them with him. That's why he eventually started eating people.
Yeah. I'm starting to see. The picture's starting to get painted here.
Yeah, he's a fucked up guy. The skull of Toomey really only held him off for a couple months. He decided that because he got away with that at his grandma's house, why not bring victims back there, drug them in the living room, take them down to the basement, and do what he has to do. But before that, he found a 14-year-old. Well, I got that name wrong. His first name's Jamie, though. He told the boy, "I'll give you $50 if you come back to my place. Let me take some pictures of you." He then did his normal routine of drugging, sexually assaulting, and dismembering the boy. The boy did come back with him. Again, back in the 80s, this was just people trusted each other, I guess. I don't know. I can't fathom that now. I would never fucking do that, but I guess harsh times, you need money.
Hey, you likely wouldn't have done that back then either, Corey. I
guess you're right. This is also in the Midwest where people are very trusting still to this day. I love all of you in the Midwest, but you definitely need to be more cautious of people. He again kept that, he again kept that skull, and he started to realize that he can get away with it. So Why not keep doing it? So he starts going back to the bagars. Wow. So he starts going back to the gay bars to start bringing. He starts bringing gay men back to his grandma's house because I think his grandma was either gone most of the time or in bed and couldn't hear her well. I can't remember. But his next victim was 22-year-old Richard Guerrero. He strangled him to death. And then this is where he went to a new level. This is the first time he tried necrophilia. He strangled the guy to death and then assaulted his corpse over and over again. Obviously, he figured out that's another thing he loved. So now he just had another fucking thing. And this is a very common thing with Jeffrey Dahmer. Every time he finds a new thing, he just adds it.
So after that, so he does like the entire thing and just keeps
keeps adding steps.
All right, so after that second kill, like we're talking almost a decade between. After that second kill, it's just like the floodgates open. He just goes and just can't stop now.
87 was his second kill, and he ended up with 17 by 91. So it was just 4 years of nothing but killing.
Man, like, you weren't kidding. Like, I was born by that time. Like, I really thought, like, before we started, I had mentioned that I thought this was all, like, 60s, 70s, 80s, where all this was happening. Like, maybe 80s, like, at best. I did not realize this was, like, such a modern serial killer. Like,
Jeffrey Dahmer watched MTV. That's how new it is.
That's wild. That is so fuck. My questions for could this happen today? Like, no wonder you were like, yeah, it was
not that far off
today.
But at this point, because he was realizing it was so easy and he was getting away with it, he kind of went on a rampage. He was just loose to do whatever he wanted, basically. He sees a stranded motorist. The guy's name is Ronald Flowers. He was trying to start his car, and Jeffrey Dahmer went up, decided this is my next victim, decided to offer him help. He said, I can help you. You want to go back to my grandma's house and get the tools? I got some coffee there that I can give you while I find the tools. But just as he actually did get the drugs into the guy's coffee, he did drink it. And down the stairs comes Grandma, asking who the guy is, what's going on, what are all the noises, what are you doing? And Dahmer, he was smart enough to know that if he killed that guy and it came up on the news, his grandma was going to get suspicious. So he decided to wait till the guy passed out and took him to the hospital. And that guy actually brought the cops back to Dahmer. Dahmer got arrested. But again, like he always does, he talked his way out of it. The authorities actually didn't believe Flowers because he was a black man, again, this time. And they didn't believe him and they ignored it altogether. They just completely scrapped this. They said, that didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. Just go about your life. That's still a problem to this day, that whole not believing, because that would have stopped a lot of shit. But this actually caused a lot of problems between Jeffrey and his grandma. She started to really get suspicious and ask questions about his behavior and the smell in the basement. He kept saying it was his taxidermy and he'll clean out the rotting animals and he's sorry. But he started to realize he wasn't going to get away with this at grandma's anymore because she's asking too many questions. And his dad was eventually going to come around and ask questions.
If grandma's asking questions, it's not long before she talks to dad. Yeah,
exactly. So he found his own place. And only one day after moving, he approached a 13-year-old boy on the street about taking nude pictures of him for $50. The boy went back with him, and Jeff asked if he can listen to his stomach. He went to put his head on his stomach and asked if he could listen. The kid got all freaked out and booked it out of the apartment, ran straight to the police, and told them what happened. They went and arrested Dahmer for this. He was found guilty this time, but because it was his first offense, they only gave him 1 year with work release and 5 years probation. So while he was waiting, and this is the fucked up part, while he was waiting to go to prison, this ballsy motherfucker went and decided to kill one more person before he went to prison.
What the? How did it take so long for him to get caught?
There's even more. Wait till you hear about the one kid.
Oh my God.
This is where he met 24-year-old Anthony Sears at the gay bar, decides to take him home, continues to do his normal routine, but this time he saves some of the body parts. And the urge to keep these men with him was so strong at this point that he would take Anthony's skull with him. He took it to work at the chocolate factory, kept it in his locker, and he would go there every morning when he got released from prison, talk to it, kiss it, make out with it, and then go to work. And while he was in prison, while doing all this, the whole year he was in prison, he started to fantasize about cannibalism. And in his mind, he thinks, well, if I eat them, they'll always be a part of me. That was literally the way he was thinking about it. He still didn't do it quite yet, but he fantasized it the whole time he was in prison. And he was released from that in 1990. This is actually when you were born.
Yeah.
Right, you were born, yeah. That's when he was released from prison the first time. This is when he moved to the infamous apartment 213 at the Oxford Apartments in Milwaukee, where all the pictures of people dragging shit out of his apartment come from.
Okay.
He picked this place because it was cheap, and it was within walking distance of his job and the bars, and it was a predominantly black neighborhood, which seemed to be his MO. Most of the people he went after were either black or Hispanic or Indian.
Now, did he do that? Do you know why that's the case? Or
no, I don't know that he ever said why that was his thing.
Was it just his type?
I think it was just his type, yeah.
Okay.
I think he just like
it sounds like it kind of did him a lot of favors with like the police and stuff since they didn't believe.
You know what? If that was part of it, that was a very good strategy for the time because that obviously worked in his favor a few times.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It was only 1 week after moving in that he got his first victim back out of prison. Only 1 week. It was 33-year-old Raymond Smith. I brought him back to his apartment, drugged and killed him. This is when he started taking extremely graphic pre- and post-murder Polaroids and different levels of mutilation. He was taking
really
Polaroids and keeping them.
Felt invincible for some reason.
He was starting to feel like nothing could happen to him. He did this with the next few victims as well. He just keeps going with multiple people. But this is where people start to notice something was actually wrong. Men at the bars are starting to notice that their friends are coming up missing. His neighbors are starting to smell funky smells coming from his apartment. And he got away with it with the families for the most part because this was gay men from other areas coming to Milwaukee, so they weren't recognized.
Yeah,
they're like
no
traveling,
families.
so nobody. Yeah, exactly. So he was pretty much getting away with it from that end. But the gay community is strong, and they were noticing that their friends were coming up missing. But it took a while because a lot of these people were from other areas. So maybe they just stopped coming around because their job got more serious, or they found another one, or
something happened. Yeah.
Anything. Facebook didn't exist yet. That's where Ernest Miller actually came in. He was the first victim that Dahmer decided to eat. That was actually when he became the cannibal. That was in 1990. And
so we're approaching like the end game here.
Yeah, we're pretty close.
Okay.
It was the next step for Jeffrey Dahmer. Every bite he took of this man, he actually got sexually aroused and like almost had to masturbate every bite he took. That first guy.
Now, did he like just fucking raw flesh or
he cooked them, seasoned them? Okay. But he also had a bunch of pre-packaged like meals in his fridge, wrapped in plastic and paper for like the days of the week. When they actually searched his fridge, they found he had meals planned out with body parts.
He meal prepped people.
And he boiled...
I can't even make myself meal prep chicken.
No, exactly. They actually also found a pot on his stove of penises that he had boiled.
A boiled penis.
That's right.
Okay, this got wild.
Now we come around to his ninth victim. The guy's name was David Thomas, not the founder of Wendy's. He did all the normal Dahmer things to this guy, but when it came to disposing of the body, for some reason, he took this guy for a drive and just dumped him on the side of the road. Nobody really knows why. This was the one guy he didn't want to eat or keep, or maybe the guy rubbed him the wrong way, or because if Jeffrey Dahmer's whole plan was to keep these people forever, it's like any relationship. You're not going to want to keep somebody who makes you feel bad. So maybe this guy just wasn't what he thought he would be, and I don't know.
It almost sounds... He just dumped him on the side of the road after killing him and everything. Yep. So he still did all this. He just didn't eat him.
He sexually assaulted him, drugged him, and killed him. But he didn't eat him or keep any of his body parts or any of that.
It almost sounds like he was starting to go to a different level of things.
Or wanting to get caught, which is what a lot of people are starting to think at this point. Like maybe at this point he was actually trying to get caught.
Why would that... Was he actually regretting all this?
Most of the time in psychology, they say that these guys are trying to get caught in their own way. That's why they get more and more brazen about it.
And they always...
It's not like a thought they actually have. It's more of a subconscious thing in their head that wants them to... They need to stop killing. It's not remorse in any way. It's It's more the biological clock in your head saying, okay, you've taken enough people. We should probably...
Enough is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But this is when he started to get a little reckless. He's just leaving that guy on the side of the road. He actually was getting kicked out of bars for being too drunk and obnoxious at this point. He started going to the streets for his victims. This is where it gets weird. This is where he found 14-year-old Konarak Synthesomphone. I don't know how to say that name exactly, but I'm going to just call him Konarak because that first name is actually kind of easy to say.
Konarak.
But he
okay.
propositioned him to come back to his place again for the nude photos for money. This boy was actually the brother of the boy Dahmer went to prison for assaulting 3 years prior.
Oh my God.
He was his older brother or younger brother. But now that this boy is 14, he still came back with Dahmer because he needed the money. Dahmer drugged him, raped him, and took pictures of him. But for some reason this time, he wasn't satisfied. He didn't want to kill him. He decided that he needed more out of his victims. He realized these murders and eatings aren't enough to make him any less lonely. He was still lonely every time. So he got an idea. Maybe I can make them zombies. That way they can stay with me forever.
That was Dahmer.
This is where he decides to take a drill. He drilled a hole in the kid's head, proceeded to pour small amounts of hydrochloric acid directly into the brain. And halfway through this process, he became extremely aware that he was sober and needed beer to do this correctly. So he went out on a beer run halfway through trying to turn this kid into a zombie.
What the fuck?
While he was gone, this kid somehow found his way out to the street naked, just trying to get away. A lady from a neighboring building actually saw him, asked if he was okay, noticing he was naked and bloody, with blood all over his head, but he couldn't speak. He was barely awake and aware. So she went and dialed 911 to report this. While she was on the phone with them, Jeff actually showed up and tried to take the kid, tried to take Konarak back. And she refused to let him go. She fought. They were basically playing tug of war with this kid's arms. The cops finally showed up, and this is the most fucked up part of this whole story. Jeff told them that they were boyfriends and that they were having rough sex, and that's why he was bleeding. That he was too drunk to communicate this, but that's exactly what's going on. The cops not only patted Jeff on the back, but took them back to his apartment, saw the naked photos of the kid, decided this gay stuff was weird or whatever. Then they said that it smells like somebody took a shit on your carpet, made a joke. And that's because there was another corpse rotting on his bed at that very moment. And then they left that kid, that 14-year-old kid with Jeffrey Dahmer, just because he said he's 20, he's my boyfriend. They then placed a very infamous call that you can actually hear anywhere to dispatch, making jokes about them being gay and saying, we're going to need to come back to the station and get deloused. They were making jokes about this shit.
This whole story is just the tremendous failure of the police at every turn.
Absolutely it is. And a lot of people blame the cops for him not being caught a lot sooner. This is when, not even, I think 20 minutes after the cops left, he got back to trying to make that kid a zombie and drilled another hole in his head and killed him. So not only did it not work, not only did the cops give him back, but then he just ended up killing the kid. And I'm not 100% sure if I'm assuming he kept skulls and stuff of that kid and ate them or whatever, but I don't know. It's so weird that there's a brother out there that didn't fall for this, or got away actually, who knows his brother didn't. And that's gotta be rough. And he probably wishes he could have been there to be like, dude, are you serious?
Astounded by these kids that kept going with him. Like,
yep. He was a trustworthy looking guy with a button-down shirt and khakis.
I guess that's why, it was drilled into, our head. Like, I was born in 1990. It was drilled in our head. Never fucking go with any stranger. Never fucking go with any stranger.
Yeah, we even had a passcode that they had to give us if they weren't a stranger. There was a certain word they were supposed to say to us if it was my parents sending them.
Just so just to make it. Yeah, no wonder. Like, it makes so much more sense now. Kids would just fucking go with anybody, apparently. Like, not to make light of the situation, but it's like insane to me.
That's why so many people were kidnapped in the 80s and 90s. It was
went.
Easy. They went with you, or there were no cameras to see you doing it. The only thing you usually had to go off of was the other kids that were with them trying to describe the car, which doesn't always work, And
that's if they even thought something was weird.
Exactly.
That's crazy to me.
It is.
Wow.
But this is when he actually started to do this so much and so many late hours that he was falling asleep at work and got fired. And that actually just made him slip further into a sick fantasy world. He actually began to spray paint and organize the skulls and body parts into like a shrine. He was making a praying altar to his body parts and skulls. He was spray painting them different colors. He actually had one half set up. In his 13-year span, he murdered 17 men and boys. But on July 22nd, 1991, he tried to do all of this to his potential 18th victim, a man named Tracy Edwards, who you can still see a bunch of interviews of him out there. He followed Dahmer back to his apartment for more drinks, but the second he walked in and smelled the horrible stench, he just didn't want to be there. He knew something was off. He started to back out of the apartment, and Dahmer went into a crazy rage and tried to cuff him. He only got one cuff on him, though. The guy Dahmer put a giant blade up to his heart, told him he's going to do what he needs him to do. And as soon as Jeff turned his head, Tracy ran away and got away. He found a police car. For some reason, Jeffrey Dahmer stayed home. Again, I think trying to get caught. Told them what happened. They followed him back to Dahmer's apartment. I'm not sure if they knew, like, oh, we just got a call about this guy. Maybe we should go check into it, or if they were just doing their job. These guys might have actually...
Has it been enough times that he's had the cops call on him that they actually fucking listen at this point?
I don't know, because if they had looked into it the first time when that kid escaped, or when the kid had the hole in his head, they would have found that he went to jail for being a pedophile. Yeah. So they would have looked into him more, but they didn't even do their job.
Even a glance around the house, just something.
But I'm pretty sure these guys did their job because they just followed him back to Dahmer's apartment. Jeff tried to give them the same bullshit story he always does about lovers, and they were playing a game, and they asked if he had keys to the handcuffs on Tracy's arm. He says, yeah, they're in my bedroom. He walked them right into the bedroom where there were stains everywhere, Polaroids of nude men in different stages of dismemberment just pinned to the wall. They immediately cuffed him and knocked him to the ground, and Dahmer is recorded as saying in that moment, for what I did, I should be dead. So, that's automatically an admission. You know that you're wrong for what you're doing. But
this guy is an enigma to me.
He is. In his apartment, they found detached penises, severed lips,
God, he kept lips.
Full human head in the fridge, skulls and bones everywhere, prepared human meat meals wrapped in paper and foil in his fridge, 50-gallon barrel with decomposing body parts and acid. It took them, and various boxes and bags. It took them all night to get all the horrible shit out of that building. The neighbors actually said that smell they've been smelling for months, the next morning was gone. So they knew for a fact that it was, he kept telling them that it was meat that a family member sent him that went bad, and he was getting rid of it.
It was just rancid. It was literally rancid meat. It was literally,
yep. Yeah. Not animal. It was human.
Yeah.
As soon as he went to jail, he admitted everything right away. Didn't even hold anything back. Told them how many people he killed, how long he'd been doing it. His lawyer tried for an insanity defense, but that was never really going to work because it was all too premeditated, and he admitted to knowing it was wrong, and he admitted everything right away that he did.
He was too lucid.
He was way too lucid to have done that. In an interview later, he did years later, well, a year later, I think, he said if he had been let out, and if he had still let out this day, he'd keep killing. He said, it's good I'm here because I still have the urges, and I would still be doing it if they let me out right now. So he for sure knew enough that he knew he shouldn't be out in public. He knew he was a bad person.
That's so wild to me that he was like self-aware. Like
he was so self-aware.
I always have it in my head that like serial killer, like
exactly. You'd think if you're that self-aware, you'd feel too bad to do that, but that's obviously not the case because he did.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Okay.
While he was in prison, he used to make jokes with food. He would shape them like arms and legs and say, "Oh, I'm going to eat my lunch." And people really didn't like that. They actually pissed a lot of prisoners off.
He was still the class clown?
He was still the class clown. And
wow.
In 1994, a fellow inmate named Christopher Carver crushed Jeffrey Dahmer's head in the gym with a dumbbell, which was the way he killed his first victim, which is very ironic.
Justice, yeah.
While they were on cleaning duty in the gym, Chris went on to say in his trial about it that God told him to do it to rid him of that evil. So that's the full story of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Wow. That
But
is...
the dude had so many steps that he actually took. Like, everybody knows he's a cannibal. Nobody knows, not a lot of people know about the zombie thing, the shrine. There's so much that people typically don't know about the guy.
That's what a story. Like, and clearly it's like a true story.
Yeah,
like, that's
this
the
is not a movie.
I can't. It almost sounds like a movie. Like, every turn,
Exactly.
like, he should have been caught so many times. It never should have progressed to the point it did.
It's exactly why so many people have played Dahmer in movies, because it's such a compelling story that if it were written, it'd be a masterpiece.
Yeah, like,
but because it's real, it's fucking crazy.
It's what I'm starting to understand your fascination with this stuff. Like, that is just such an interest. Like towards at the beginning, I had more questions, but as it went on, I had to like hear, well, how the fuck did he get away with that? How did he not get, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, and there's about a million little details I didn't talk about, but they're all a little less significant. I just wanted to touch on the craziest things he did, really. But yeah, he's a fucked up dude. They touch on most of what I talked about, or all of what I talked about in that Dahmer show with Evan Peters. I very strongly suggested anybody who's into true crime. It's very, very good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give that a watch now, because I'm even more interested than I was now that I have some like backstory to go with it. Yeah. Wow.
Well, I wanted to start off every once in a while I'm going to do these for anybody who was wondering. I'm thinking about calling it Corey's Killer Corner. Not sure yet, but it's kind of my placeholder name for it as of right now. I'm very obsessed with this stuff. I always have been. And I figured I'd start with a banger, Jeffrey Dahmer. He's one of the big ones. Plus, he's got a lot out there right now with the Dahmer show. So if anybody didn't get anything from that show that wants to know the real story, I told a little bit of it, but there are so many good documentaries out there if anybody wants to check any of those out. I just really like this stuff. I don't know. I like talking about it. It's one of those things that I have such a vast knowledge of that's kind of useless for the most part. So I like to get it out there whenever somebody wants to hear it.
Perfect for entertainment.
Exactly.
Which is what we hope to do here.
It's what we do at Culture Shocked every day. A lot of people don't give a shit about the games we play or the movies we watch or the TV shows we watch, but we're going to tell you anyway. So
it's true. Yeah, I don't really know how to wrap this one up for you. Help you wrap this one up. I'm just, do you have an idea? Like, cause I would definitely be down to be here for these, and do it like this. Like, I thought this was really interesting, and like, it seemed like just having some questions to go along with the story didn't hurt anything.
No,
yeah.
When it comes to something like this is the most notes I've taken for any episode we've done, because this is my obsession. It's why I wanted to start a podcast in the first place, back before Adrian even asked me to do this one. But then when he said he wanted to do this one, that's another area of my knowledge that I had to get out there, was entertainment.
Little inside info. Corey and I, we're actually real into the information side of things more so than the other guys. So something like this, like I don't have any knowledge of this, but just sitting here learning about it is super interesting to me. That's why there's very few jokes in this episode. Let us know if you like this, because he clearly likes talking about it, and I just love learning new things. Where can they let us know their opinions on this?
To let me know whether or not you like this and find out whether or not I care, it's on Facebook, it's Culture Shocked Podcast. On Instagram, it's Culture Shock 21, and on Twitter, where I do most of my work, it's CS Podcast 21. Yeah, seriously, get on there and tell me what you think, because I'm going to keep talking about serial killers, even if it's someday I'm just alone and reading a story. It don't matter. I'm going to do these. So download them or not, I'm doing them.
Who do you think you'd like to hit on next?
I don't know. I'll think about that, because there's a lot of big ones out there, but I don't want to exhaust all the big ones right away.
Oh yeah, like even like the smaller ones could be interesting.
All right, well, that's going to do it from the two of us here at Culture Shocked. Thanks for listening.